Do you like mysteries? To wander through the enigmatic mist of the inexplicable? Great. I'm Merc, and here you'll find what you're looking for. Welcome to my domains. The truth dissolves into the mist.
Deep in the Wind River range of Wyoming, where the pines grow twisted and the mist never fully lifts from the valleys, the Shoshone people speak of something that does not belong in this world. Not a spirit, not a demon, but flesh and bone. Small, furious, and utterly without mercy. They call it the Nimerigar. Imagine walking through a narrow mountain pass, the air thin and cold, when you feel eyes on you. Not from above, not from a distance, but from the rocks at your feet. A soft rustle, then a blur of motion. Before you can react, a needle-thin arrow sinks into your calf. The pain is immediate, but the poison is worse. Your vision blurs, your muscles lock, and by the time you fall, they are already closing in. Nimerigar are described as a race of hostile humanoids, standing no more than 60 centimeters tall. That is roughly the height of a house cat standing on its hind legs. But do not let the size fool you. The Shoshone elders warn that these creatures are fast, coordinated, and armed with bows dipped in a neurotoxin so potent that a single scratch can paralyze an adult man within minutes. What makes the Nimerigar truly terrifying is not their weaponry. However, it is their social structure. According to the oral traditions passed down through generations, these little people lived in small tribal units hidden inside caves and rock crevices high in the mountains. They hunted in packs, ambushed solitary travelers, and showed no fear of humans. But their cruelty was not reserved for outsiders alone. Think about that for a moment. A creature that attacks without warning, that uses poison to ensure its prey cannot escape, and that feels no compassion even for its own kind. You might be wondering, is this just a legend? A cautionary tale told to keep children away from dangerous cliffs? Perhaps. But then the bones appeared, in the 1930s. Two ranchers named Cecil Maine and Frank Carr were digging for gold in the San Pedro Mountains, not far from Shoshone territory. What they found was not gold. It was a tiny mummy, perfectly preserved, seated in a small cavern. The creature was fully formed, with a flattened skull, small limbs, and adult teeth. It measured just 35 centimeters in length. The press called it the San Pedro Mountains mummy. Anthropologists who examined the mummy in the following years were divided. Some claimed it was an anencephalic infant, a human child born with a severe brain malformation that gave the skull an unnatural shape. Others were not so sure. The teeth, they argued, were too developed for a newborn. The bones were too dense. Some even whispered that the mummy did not resemble any known human deformity. The mummy disappeared in the 1950s, stolen or lost, and has never been recovered. But the memory of it remains. And so does the question, could that tiny body have belonged to an Nimerigar? The Shoshone never doubted it. For them, the discovery was simply confirmation of what they had always known. The little people are real, and they are not friendly. You have probably heard similar legends from other parts of the world. The Menehune of Hawaii, the Yeren of China, the Jinn of the Arabian desert. Small, elusive, often hostile. But the Nimerigar stand apart because of one detail, one horrifying detail that changes everything. They do not care for their wounded. They do not carry their sick. They kill them. According to the Shoshone, when a Nimerigar became too injured to fight or too ill to keep up with the group, the others would take large stones and smash the victim's head. Not out of mercy, out of efficiency. A disabled member was a liability, a drain on resources, a weakness that could attract predators or enemies. So they eliminated the problem. Brutally, immediately, without ritual or regret. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine living in a group where your survival depends entirely on your usefulness. The moment you break a leg, your own family turns on you with rocks in their hands. There is no hospital, no healing, no second chance. Only the cold calculus of the mountain. The Nimerigar did not see this as cruelty. They saw it as logic. This is the detail that haunts anthropologists, because it is not fantasy. It is not ghost story material. It is raw, pragmatic survival behavior, and it has been observed in extreme human isolation scenarios, starvation situations, and even in certain prehistoric cultures under duress. The difference is that the Nimerigar allegedly made it a permanent rule, not an exception. But if the Nimerigar were just a myth, why would the Shoshone invent such a disturbing detail? Why not make them simple monsters, like the cannibal giants of other tribes? Because the Nimerigar are not monsters. They are a mirror, a reflection of what humans might become if stripped of empathy, if pushed to the absolute edge of survival. And that is far more terrifying than any claw or fang. Let us return to the bones, because the story does not end with the San Pedro mummy. Over the years, other remains have surfaced in the Wyoming and Montana regions. Small skeletons, some no longer than 40 centimeters, with adult dentition and fused cranial sutures. Most were dismissed as hoaxes or misidentified animal bones, but a few were never properly explained. In 2004, a cave near the Wind River was partially excavated by a private collector who wished to remain anonymous. Inside a narrow fissure, too tight for an adult human to pass. The collector reported finding dozens of tiny bones arranged in a circular pattern. Among them was a skull with a pronounced occipital ridge, something rarely seen in human infants. The collector did not call any university. He sold the pieces online. It is the frustrating reality of the Nimerigar legend. There is always just enough evidence to make you wonder, but never enough to silence the skeptics. A mummy that vanishes. Bones that enter private collections. Stories that change slightly with each retelling. And yet, the core remains disturbingly consistent. Small, aggressive, merciless, and the head-smashing, always the head-smashing. You might ask yourself, if these creatures existed, where are the bodies of the murdered ones? The ones whose heads were crushed with stones? The Shoshone answer is simple. The Nimerigar buried their dead in hidden crevices, sometimes dropping the bodies into deep shafts inside the mountains. They did not want their fallen to be found. Not by enemies, not by spirits, and certainly not by us. This detail actually strengthens the case for those who believe the legend has a real biological basis, because hiding the dead is a behavior seen in many small, vulnerable hominid groups. It reduces the chance of attracting predators. It denies enemies intelligence. And it explains why we have not found an Nimerigar cemetery neatly labeled with signs. The mountains are full of holes. We have barely scratched the surface. Consider the environment. The Rocky Mountains are vast, remote, and largely unexplored at the micro level. Caves that have never seen a flashlight. Passes that no geologist has ever mapped. If a small, intelligent hominid wanted to remain hidden from human expansion, it could do so for centuries. Even today, new species of mammals are discovered in North America every few years. A tiny humanoid is not impossible. It is just inconvenient. But let us address the elephant in the cave. The poison arrows. The Shoshone described the Nimerigar venom as something that causes rapid paralysis, followed by death if untreated. No known plant or animal toxin in the Wyoming region produces that exact effect. Some have suggested the creatures imported the poison from elsewhere, perhaps trading with other small tribes. Others believe the poison was exaggerated in the retelling. However, there is another possibility. What if the Nimerigar did not use a plant toxin at all? What if they cultivated a fungus, or extracted venom from a now extinct insect. The Shoshone are precise in their descriptions. They distinguish between the Nimerigar poison and the simpler toxins used for hunting rabbits. The Nimerigar poison was special, it was feared, and it was kept secret. Now think about the implication for you, the viewer. If you were hiking alone in the Wind River Range and you suddenly felt a sharp sting on your neck, would you know what hit you? Would you even see the attacker? At 60 centimeters, a Nimerigar could hide behind a sagebrush. They could climb faster than you could run. They could watch you for hours without you ever knowing. The Shoshone have a warning that has survived for centuries. Never sleep with your back to a rock pile. Never enter a narrow canyon alone. And if you hear laughter that sounds too small, too high-pitched, too close to the ground, run. Do not look back, because the Nimerigar do not chase, they ambush. And they do not take prisoners. Some cryptozoologists have tried to link the Nimerigar to the so-called dwarf tribes of North America, including the Pedro Mountain group and the Lovelock Cave red-haired giants from Nevada. But the Nimerigar are different. The Lovelock giants were large, not small. The Pedro Mountain mummy was a single specimen. The Nimerigar are described as an organized society with rules, hierarchy, and a brutal eugenics policy. That last part is what separates the Nimerigar from every other little people legend on Earth. The systematic killing of their own weak. That is not monster behavior. That is ideology. And ideology requires language, memory, and tradition. In other words, the Nimerigar were not animals. They were people. Just not people like us. So what happened to them? The Shoshones say the Nimerigar simply disappeared around the time European settlers arrived in the region. Not because they were killed, but because they retreated deeper into the mountains, into tunnels that no human can fit through. Some elders believe they are still there, waiting, watching, and breeding, waiting for the mountains to grow quiet again. You do not have to believe in ghosts to find the Nimerigar unsettling. You do not need to be superstitious to feel a chill when you walk past a pile of rocks in Wyoming, because the question is not whether a 60-centimeter humanoid could exist. Biologically, it could. The question is whether a creature that kills its own wounded could ever coexist with us. The Shoshone answer is no. That is why the Nimerigar hide, and that is why you should be glad they do. Next time you see a cave entrance on a mountainside, too small for a person to enter, remember the Nimerigar, remember the poison, remember the stones, and ask yourself one question. If they never existed, why does every Shoshone elder tell the same story with the same fear in their eyes? The answer might be smaller than you think, and closer than you want.
Did you like this mystery? And what is your theory? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed it, then like and share. I'm Merc, and I'll be waiting for you in the next mystery.